Craig Golding. I've been a professional photographer for quite a few years now. I started at the Sydney Morning Herald in 1985. In that time, from 1991, I was covering sport full-time for the paper, and I've continued to do that as well as do a few other things since moving out to the freelance world. I think being able to combine a passion for both photography and sport has given me one of the best jobs in the world. As far as shooting action, I think the best bit of advice I could give would be to familiarise yourself with that particular sport, because by doing that, by understanding your game and how it works, you give yourself a better chance of anticipating where and when something might happen within the event. When I'm working with artificial light, whether it's indoors in stadiums or outdoors at night again in stadiums, I'll always take a white balance and shoot a white piece of paper or a white shirt, whatever's around, and then I'll compare it to what I get on the auto white balance on the camera and check which one's the best. And usually I've found with the later cameras, the Mark IV, it's pretty close anyway. It's pretty good. As far as lighting outdoors and how I handle that, I find that if it's practical, sometimes it isn't practical. You've got to shoot when something's happening. But if it's an event where you can shoot in the early morning or late afternoon, that's a better time to shoot because the sun's a bit lower and there's a better quality to it. When you're forced to work in, say, midday sun, which is normally pretty ugly, if you shoot that front lit, you'll find that it's really hard. You get pockets of black lights under the eyes, which are pretty ugly. So a lot of the times I'll shoot it backlit, and by shooting backlit, it gives you a nice even light over your subject, and it also sort of highlights it gives you a rim of light. So it's a lot nicer light to work under. It wasn't until I started shooting professionally that I realised how important backgrounds were. If you've got a lousy background, no matter what's happening in the foreground, it's going to kill it. And so often the difference between a great picture and a picture that could have been great is because of the background. An effective technique to use when shooting action, I think, is panning. And when I say panning, what you're doing is you're shooting at a slower shutter speed, and it sort of varies, depends on what you're shooting, whether you're shooting a car or a skateboarder or whatever. But it can range from 1/4 of a second to 1/30th of a second. And what you do is if your subject's moving past you, you're kind of following that with your lens. So in effect, the subject is basically still in your frame, but what that does is, because you're on a slow shutter speed and you're moving, it blurs out your background. So it's a really handy thing to do for getting rid of unsightly, ugly looking backgrounds and stadiums, and it also gives you that feeling of movement within the picture that's often hard to get. And it's a good one to use I find, for car racing. I don't do a lot of car racing, but when I do it, I use panning a lot, because I find that if you just shoot it on a really fast shutter speed, it basically looks like a car parked in the middle of the track. Whereas if you pan with it, you blur out your backgrounds and it gives you that impression of movement. So when I'm shooting non-action sport, I'll go for the shorter lenses, because to me it allows you to get in there, to get closer to your subject, and it gives it a more intimate feel. It also allows you to create that depth within your pictures. You have people in the front or objects in the front, and you can see different layers and different levels within the pictures, and that's one of the things I really like about, and I think good pictures show, there's other things happening within the picture. There's smaller things happening that could actually be images or pictures on their own account. And I think that's, by using shorter lenses, it allows you to do that. I think the difference between the great photographers and the good photographers are that the better photographers often seem to see things that aren't apparent to other people, and this can come down to something as simple as picking a different angle, shooting from a another interesting viewpoint, and also for shooting subjects that are familiar, but shooting them in a different, unfamiliar, unique sort of way.